Alright guys, welcome to our Unit 4 Quiz 1 Study Guide help video. So I'll be doing the even ones, those are the required ones, and I've once again provided odd problems in case you want a little extra practice. So here we go. Solve each equation with the quadratic formula. So my A value is 4, my B value is -2, my C value is 4. Quadratic formula is x equals -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. We're plugging in the a values. I'll plug in the b values first, -2, -2. Then I'll plug in the a values. And then finally the c value. All right, I like to simplify these four groups first. So that gives me 2 plus or minus 4 minus 64 over 8. Next, I simplify this guy, and I end up with -60 there. The next thing I like to do is I like to simplify my radical. Now, if you have a negative underneath the radical, we take that out as an I. The next thing we do is we factor down our 60 as much as possible. 60 is 10 times 6. 10 is 2 times 5, and 6 is 2 times 3. And if we have a pair, which I do, I've got two 2's here, we could take a 2 out to the outside and get rid of the pair there, which leaves me with 2 square root of 15. So now I have x is equal to 2 plus and minus. Instead of the square root of -60 now, I've got 2i square root of 15. And a denominator still of 8. Last thing is that we want to reduce, so these three numbers here can all reduce by 2, leaving me with 1 plus or minus I root 15 over 4. And there you guys have it. So that is solving a quadratic equation using the quadratic formula. So you'll have one of those on your quiz. Let's go ahead and take a look at number 4. We've got another quadratic equation to solve here, but notice the directions say solve by taking square roots. And that's because this one only has an x squared, it doesn't have an x term, it's only got an x squared term. And when that happens, we can just use basic algebra to solve. We want to just get x squared by itself. So we're just going to start by adding 7 on both sides. Then we're going to divide by -8. In this case, the negatives go away, and this thing does reduce. I believe 4 goes into the top 15 times, and it goes into the bottom 2 times. And then we're going to go ahead and take the square root on both sides. And when you take the square root of a fraction, you've got to remember a couple things. First of all, you get a plus and a minus. Second of all, taking the square root of the fraction is like taking the square root of the top and the bottom separately. And another thing you might want to recall is we don't like having square roots in the bottom. But before I do take care of that, I just want to remind you, you might end up with a situation where these square roots need to be simplified, like taking out your pairs and stuff, but 15 is only 3 times 5, so there's no pairs to take out, and 2 doesn't break down. So I can't simplify my roots, but if you can, you might want to start by doing that. But anyway, I'm going to go multiply the top and the bottom by the square root of 2. And I'm going to do that to get rid of the square root off the bottom, because we're not supposed to have square roots on the bottom. So square root of 2 times square root of 2 is 2. Square root of 2 times square root of 15 is square root of 30. And once again, we don't want to forget our plus and minus. And once again, just make sure you do check to see if you could break down your square roots at the very end. In this case, 30 doesn't have any pairs. I already know that. It's 15 times 3 times 2. So I'm sorry, it's 5 times 3 times 2. So there's no pairs at all in that. So we're all done at that point. Let's go ahead and check out number 6. This one's asking us to rewrite it in vertex form. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to move this 7 out of the way. So I'm going to add 7 on both sides, and if I do that, I will no longer have a 7 on the left side, and I will now have a positive 7 on the right side. The next thing I'm going to do is factor out the 9. Oops. If I divide the negative 18 by 9, I'm going to have 2 left. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to complete the square. And that means we're going to be adding a number right here. And that number is going to be half of this number, which is negative 1, squared. So what I'm going to be putting in there is a positive 1. And you're going to do, now what we have to do is we have to fix that balance. Okay, I just added a number on the left side of my equation. And since I did that, I also need to add a number to the right side of my equation. So how do I do that? Well, we do this number times this number. We multiply them. So 9 times 1 is 1. And then that's what we're going to add to the other side. So now I have 9m squared minus 2m plus 1 is equal to y plus 16 if I put that 7 and 9 together. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to factor this up. So if I factor that, it's always going to look like this. And this number here will always be half of that number, so minus 1. And then finally, the last step is to move the 16 back over to the other side. And that gives us our vertex form of the quadratic. And that's the end of it. Right, let's go ahead and take a look at number 8. That's our last one. So, graphing quadratics. So, the first thing we want to do is we want to plot our vertex. Just like when we did absolute value functions, the opposite of this number is going to be your x value, and this number is going to be your y value for your vertex. So I'm going to put my vertex at 6, negative 2, which is right here. Next, we have a negative 1. Now, anytime your a value is negative, your parabola is going to be a downward-facing parabola. Now, technically, in the notes, we talked about how if this number is greater than 1, it's going to look skinny, and if it's less than 1, it's going to be fat. That part I'm not going to be looking at too much on the quiz. I'm really just going to be looking at, did you get it going in the right direction? If you have a negative, it should be upside down. If you have a positive, it should be right side up. Okay, so on the quiz, I'll really just be looking to see, did you get your vertex right, and is the U going in the correct direction? Okay, and that will do it. And so hopefully that was helpful for you guys, and we'll see you guys in class. Have a good one.